Welcome to the Green Room, your backstage pass to the world of surfing. I'm your host, surf MC and commentator Terry Tapatis, diving into epic wins, crushing fails and wild stories with surfing's biggest names, as well as the legends working behind the scenes to keep that stoke alive. A big shout out to our sponsor for this episode, the Official Beer Co. with their new GC Lager. So wax up, paddle out and join us in the Green Room, where the surf chat never goes flat. G'day folks and welcome to the Green Room. I've known today's guest since I was barely a teenager, and I've known of him and his family ever since I started surfing. I thought I was a bit of a local on the Gold Coast, born in 1965, but this bloke leaves me for dead. He's a second generation Gold Coast surfer, over 70 years of age, now a grandfather to the fourth generation of Neielsons hitting the waves. A surfer, a super athlete in the 1970s, businessman, coach, innovator, trailblazer, and an all-round man of the surfing community. He was surfing in Hawaii well before busting down the door and described by the Encyclopedia of Surfing as a sociable, first-generation pro surfer and a tube-riding virtuoso. He has won bells and events in Hawaii and is known for his fearless big wave approach. I still see Paul out at Burleigh in the solid days, and he has a real crack, in his 70s and charging. Maybe just dropping in a little bit, mostly on me, no. But it's gold surfing royalty here, as I would call him, and welcome to the Green Room, Paul Neielson.
Geez, thanks, Tapper. That's a very big introduction. I'm not sure I'm worth that much. You
are, mate. Go on to that when you're out in the big stuff. I'm going to sort of go forwards before we go backwards. I remember one day I was out there and I'm out at Burleigh and I'm paddling around, I'm walking around at Burleigh and I've got my 6'5" film eye, so I was pretty solid, and I saw this bloke, he's in his 40s, about 10 years younger than me back then, and I'm going, "You going out, mate?" And he goes, Nah, a bit too much work out there, too hard. I'm going, okay. And I paddled out there. Next thing, I think you were 69 years of age, you've paddled out, and I'm going, I'd like to tell this bloke this. And then not long after you, at 70 years of age, out paddles Mal Chalmers with one hand. I thought, this bloke needs to have a good look in the House of Mirrors. Yeah. But that was just one thing I remember about you two. You still like getting out there, and that's a great thing, mate. It's,
Yeah, well, I was going to say to you earlier, I surfed D-bar yesterday morning, which was pretty good, but it's I don't get as many as I used to, I can assure you.
You still get a few.
And I still have, I have some very, very bad days, but some days I have to go home with my tail between my legs.
Yeah, I think it does. We're all, especially when you're at Grimat. Now, mate, Bill, Ganger, and Betty, Dad was born on the Gold Coast. Is that right?
No. He wasn't born on the Gold Coast. My elder brother Rick was born in Brisbane, and then I was the first one actually born on the Gold Coast at Southboard Hospital.
At Southport Hospital, yeah, because I was born at Southport Hospital in 65. You got 14 on me. That would have been the old little hospital, not even when the high-rise, way before that.
Well, I can't remember.
Really? Mate, how was it growing up on the Gold Coast? You would have been, knowing what was going on in the mid to late 50s, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, of course. I was born in 51, and so the late 50s. It was. There just wasn't much here. I mean, everyone knows and can remember when Lennon's Hotel was first built, and basically between Surfers Paradise and Lennon's, all there was a sand road that went down along the beach, and the highway went, down past that on its way to Coolangatta. And so there was a lot of sand hills, a couple of little shacks here and there along the way at Mermaid Beach and etc. And of course, as is today, often the beaches had erosion and the sand would come back and you'd lay around in the sand. But west of where the Gold Coast Highway is was just swamp, scrub, nothing.
Well, it was about a block. When I was a little kid, about a block back was swamp back then, and that's quite a way before that. Where did the family settle, mate? Where did your family settle on the Goldie?
Well, when I was first born, we lived in Beach Road, where the RSL club is. And
well, there were houses in Beach Road.
There were houses in Beach Road,
wow.
Believe it or not, and of course where the Paradise Centre is. There was the old Seabreeze Hotel, and there were those, the very fashionable hotels that were. What's his name? Bernie.
Oh, I know.
Bernie Elsey.
Neielson,
yeah. Bernie Elsey had the used to have the pajama parties and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Now that was sort of a bit early for me because I wasn't sort of out in surfers at that stage.
Born and bred in surfers paradise, mate. There's not many that could say that.
And then we moved to Broadbeach, and Ganga my father built a house there, and that sort of became the family home, and that's really where as a kid, Rick and I used to play football, of course, at school and in the local clubs, and I recall, back at one stage I played all three codes, which was a bit later. It was actually when I went to Miami High School. Yeah. But I was playing, Aussie rules as a kid, rugby league, when I was in state school, and then I played union when I was in, or what they call rugby now, but it was union when I was in high school. And but of course, naturally, I started surfing at the age of 10 with, alongside Peter Druin, and they'd already been doing it, and I was very, very frustrated because I didn't have a board, and there was a lot of agony there for a while from my parents.
So how'd you go surfing? Did you borrow boards? Or?
Well, yeah, you just sit on the beach and just wait until someone you'd say, "Oh, mate, can I have a go on your board?" And they'd say, "Oh, yeah, just go and catch one wave."
This is on the beaches around Broady, or
yeah, just on the beach around Broady, and then eventually my father bought me about an 8'6" or 8'10" balsa board. And I didn't realise it then. I was just so incredibly grateful. But I did know that he paid a lot of money for it. It was £18.
Which is a lot of money back then.
£18 in the early 1963 or thereabouts. Yeah. £18, the equivalent. I mean, first of all, it's $36. If you just convert it. But it was, obviously it's worth like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And so I used to, drag that board around. And
of course, you would have been a little fella too, big board to drag around.
Well, I was only little when I was young, and I, because I sort of had a bit more of a growth spurt later on. But we used to leave our boards up at the Broadbeach Surf Club, and we'd go up there, or we'd leave our boards up the beach. You'd know a guy by the name of Greg Clough.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Greg Clough lived up the road from us, and his family had a home up there on the top of Britannia Avenue. And, interestingly, just sort of put some context into that, Greg Clough, many years after sort of the event, went on to create Aloha Surfboards. So it was, his father was a publican, and so he was sort of in that.
So he started at the Goldie and then moved to Sydney.
Well, that's where he lived. Yeah, he lived at the top of Britannia Avenue, and I think he moved to the Sunshine Coast, and then moved to Sydney. So but that's it's just an interesting thing. I always found it was interesting that Cluffy, as we called him, ended up getting into surfboards.
Wow, that's cool, mate. And that first board, do you remember the first wave that really had you hooked on surfing, or was it one of the borrowed ones?
I was just hooked because I can remember as a 9-10-year-old, I would just cry. I was just crying. I just wanted a board so bad. And at one time I said to my mother, I could pull all that stuff off that ironing board, the old timber ironing board, and I can ride that. Can I have that?
And did she let you?
I don't think so.
Oh, mate, so from there, like in 1960, so what was that when you first started to? So that would have been 61 or something?
Yeah, about 1961, yeah.
So 4 years later, you win the Queensland Cadet title.
Yeah, that's
65.
Right. Yeah, 1965, I won the Cadet title, and as I was showing you earlier, McTavish won the Open Men's, Peter Druin won the Juniors, and Peter Lascelles came second in my division, and I think Robbie Dean might have got second in the
great surfer,
juniors.
Robbie Dean too.
Yeah, Robbie's a great unsung hero. Really, he's a very 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 good surfer, and wasn't sort of gregarious or anything like that. He just sort of stayed to himself and surfed good. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And Robbie Dean. Now, so, mate, was that when did you join Wind and Sea? Because that was really the only board riders club, wasn't it? Sort of around back in those days.
Yeah, pretty much. It would have been the late 60s, very late 60s. We sort of, wind and sea was very prominent because it was out of Southern California, of course, and Southern California was the complete, virtual rage in everything. I guess it would have been sort of, around 67, 66, somewhere around there. And, that was sort of the club to be in. It was the prestigious club. They had opened up a branch in Sydney as well. And, it was just a very prestigious club to be in.
And who was in that with you? Because there's probably a couple of well-known names.
Well, there was Drew and Rick and Mickey Stafford, of course, and Phil Waller was very prominent in that. He was president. Mal Chalmers, of course. There was Chatty. There was Roy Menzies. It was just sort of a bunch of local guys that were in it, and that's sort of really when clubs started to sort of take off. But it's a funny time, that kids wanted to be, in organisations and be in those sort of things and wear uniforms and badges and things like that. It's peculiar to look back on.
Did you used to have the sticker on your board there? To have a licence for your board or something?
Oh, the council started that because there were no leg ropes.
Yeah.
And so the reason they started the licensing of the surfboards was so that if someone lost their board in the flags or the lineup and hit someone, they could
find them.
Well, they could confiscate the board and find who it was that owned it, and so it didn't work.
They tried to take my dad's board off him once. He ended up ripping it off him. And
there was a lot of arguments, a lot of where to go, and so on.
Yeah, the lifesavers and the surfers had a big thing going on back then.
Yeah, the clubbies didn't endear themselves to surfers and vice versa.
And so it wasn't long after. Was you at Miami High in the 60s? Was it?
Yeah, in the 60s.
Bill Callan, was he there then, or
no? It was before. It was before Bill, and it was. I recall I was the first of the year 8s that went through. It was a different setup then. They didn't have, I think, what was called the Bradford system, which incorporated year 8, and then you went to year 9, 10. And then on to year 11 or 12. So I was very keen to get out of school. So I left at the end of year 10. I was gone.
Yeah, a lot of people did back then, and I think it's not a bad thing when you can do a trade and you're not really interested.
Yeah.
So you had your brother Rick. Did you two were you a bit like Batman and Robin everywhere together?
Well, I think so, yeah. Of course, unlike Batman and Robin, we'd always had our fights at home in the backyard and of course, playing football and fighting over surfboards and stuff like that. Rick was 3 years older than me, and so he sort of had the upper hand on me for quite a while.
Yeah, but you got him in that Australian title, wasn't it, in 71, was it?
Yeah, well, in 1971, which incorporated the Australian titles, was Bell's. And it was a different format, then. They used to have 3 rounds. And, so we had, 3 different rounds to surf your way through. And I recall Terry Fitzgerald in that, I think, came second. And I think Rick came third in that.
Oh, that's cool. That's good, mate. And that's so that's all leading up. Actually, at Miami High, were there any surfers that went to Miami High? Because I suppose it was one of the only schools on the coast, wasn't it? There would have been many.
Well, there was a very good surfer by the name of Chris Barber. He was there in the early stages, and of course Druin was there in the early stages. And I remember one time, and there was another guy by the name of Jimmy Franklin. And he ended up starting a very big concrete business on the Gold Coast and poured a lot of concrete all over this place. And he did very well out of it. But his brother had like one of the first cars. It was, I'm only assuming this, but I'm assuming he'd been kept down a few years because he was.
He had a car at school.
He had a car at school, yeah. And so there was one. One year their Cura was real good, real big, like very big, and Druin was keen, and we were all keen, and Franklin, he said, "Oh look, we'll get in the car, we'll wag school, I'll pick you up, blah blah blah," and of course we surfed Cura all day, and it was big, good, solid, big Cura, and we'd had a real day out, and I wondered what I was going to say to my mother when I got home because
You would have been sunburnt, wouldn't you?
well, not only that, I had wax all down the fly of my school shorts, which as you know you can't get wax out easily.
No.
So it was just sort of shoved under the table and sort of forgotten about. But yeah, anyway.
That's cool. So how often, because back then, getting down to Kirra and down, well, there was really not really Snapper, was it? It was just Kirra. Was that basically?
No, there was Rainbow Bay, as we called it. We didn't, there was Little Marley, Snapper, Rainbow Bay, but it wasn't like, I don't recall it being Snapper like it is now, where you get that sort of real wedge coming around the corner. I sort of recall it more as Snapper would peel off, you'd go ride through Marley, down into Rainbow Bay, etc. Because most of those early days, everyone was riding Mals, and so the shortboard revolution didn't come until sort of later in the 60s. But talking about how you get down places, this and that. Yeah. I remember one time, and I had a Mal at this point, myself and some other bloke, I can't remember which guy it was, which friend it was, but we walked from Broadbeach to Burleigh to go surfing Burleigh with what had to be 8-foot or 9-foot boards. And we walked, paddled a bit, paddled, had your boards on your head. And eventually, I had to walk home as well after surfing all day. And I got home and the back edge of my board had completely worn through to the foam.
Because you've been dragging it
Because I've been dragging it on the sand, yeah.
Oh, that's unreal, mate. But those days, what were the crowds like in those days?
Well, again, there's no leg ropes, and so a lot of boards on the rocks, and at Burleigh, your boards went on the rocks. You had to crawl over. You'd have dings, and you have to, get back out, paddle back around, etc. It was pretty hard. But interestingly enough, there were still quite a few surfers. But we're not talking anything like. Today. We're not talking anything like today, no.
And I believe, I don't know, that not many people surf the cove for that very reason, because if you lost your board at the cove, your board was basically stuffed.
That's right, because probably not only was your board stuffed, you couldn't get at it. That's a very dangerous area on that cove front. Yeah. To go along there and be trying to grab an 8 or 9 foot board out of the rocks. Is pretty well taking your life in your hands. Yes. Depending on what size the swell is, of course.
Yeah. Oh, that's unreal, mate. Just those days sounds unreal. Now, so you left school and you became a chippy, mate. How long did that last?
Oh, well, it lasted the whole time I was.
Oh, you were apprenticed to your dad, so I suppose there was much.
No, not first. No? I spent a couple of years with another builder, and did my first 2 years of apprenticeship in college, and then I got so sick of that because we started to build high rise then, and you'll remember in 1968 we had that really 67, 68 we had that very severe cyclone, the first of the really what seemed to me to be the very big ones, and we were building a block of units up where now that the Jewel and all of that is. We were building a Spanish joint which is next door to it. I can't think what the name of it was. Anyway, that was when the cyclone hit, and I was only an apprentice then, 15 or 16 years of age. And I remember working overnight. We had to work through the nights because the builder, Huey Ashton, his name was, he was getting semi-trailer loads of Besser blocks to throw over into the ocean to try and shore up because the waves were coming into the underside.
Washing the building away.
Yeah, coming into the underside of the building. Mykonos, that was the name of the place. I believe it's still there. It's still there. So, wow. So we worked a number of nights, which was great because you're getting paid.
So at this time, were you still surfing, doing your competitive surfing, or were you into that much by then, or not?
Yeah, well, at that stage, I'd surf in the morning before work. At work, I used to take a half hour and surf just straight out because I was working on high rises on the beach, all along Mermaid Beach and all along Surfers Garfield Terrace and that area, and I would take. I'd take my board to work and I'd surf, 15 or 20 minutes at lunchtime. And fortunately, Huey was good to me. Whenever I had events on, he would let me go. And because I'd had sort of that early success, and then and then I won a junior state title, a men's state title, and then we were doing sort of numerous other events up and down the coast, and anything that was sort of major, he would let me sort of take the few days off to be able to get there, because we'd have to drive.
Well, 71 was a really good year for you, wasn't it? You won was it the Rip Curl Pro then at Bells?
No. The Rip Curl Pro didn't start until around about 74, I think.
But you won a bell. You've got a bell at home.
Yeah. I've got a bell, and that year the way that came about was pretty much because the year before, the February in 1970, that was when I finished my apprenticeship. I'd finished just that Christmas before. So the whole plan was to go to Hawaii. And so Rick and myself and another mate, Ado, we were all going to Hawaii come February. And right at the last minute, they both pulled out for various reasons. And so I went, well, I'm going, I'm going no matter what. I was 19 years of age, and I just finished an apprenticeship, and I was going to Hawaii, and nothing was
stopping you. And what gave you that motivation? Was it the surf movies you'd seen, or the magazines, or what?
Yeah, it's all of that. It was the whole essence of Hawaii being like, sort of the heartbeat of it all.
The proving ground too. You wanted to put yourself against all those surfers. The proving ground, and just I'd worked so hard towards it. I'd been saving, and there was just no stopping me. And so February I flew to Hawaii and met up with Mel Chalmers, was just finishing up a trip with Peter Druin, and they'd been staying at Randy Rarick's house at Haleiwa, and so I sort of bunked in there and rented a room for the month, and Keith Paul was still there at that time. And you had a month in Hawaii. That'd be awesome, because I remember when I went to Hawaii, Shane, because I was only there for 2 weeks, and Shane goes, mate, you got to go at least a month, maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
So you really get it. And did you find that was like that month helped you sort of adjust to it?
Oh, absolutely, because we lived at Haleiwa, and so I could surf Haleiwa every day. And as it turns out, all those years, or a year later, or over a year later, that's where I win the event at Haleiwa. But Keith Paul was good to me. We went surfing. He took me up the back of Sunset. We sat on the hill. He pointed out, where the north swell's coming, the west swell, how it all looks and feels in the water. And we'd surf Sunset, and we'd go down and surf Pipe. And Pipe was sort of always crowded, but obviously now it's just out of control, and it's just downright. Pipeline's a dangerous wave.
Yeah.
I hit my head there in the Pipe Masters and got 40 stitches. So it can hurt. So yeah.
When you went to Hawaii, that was what, 70? Did you say?
No, yeah, 1970 in February.
70. So the short board revolution had happened. So it was like we're on sort of more modern shape boards.
Yeah. I wasn't riding a Mal. The Mal thing had almost just ended, because Druin had won the Makaha in 1968 or 69, and he'd won that like on a Mal, and so the boards had changed to be sort of more gun type boards, but of course I didn't have any boards to take at that point. So Keith had boards, Randy had boards. I just sort of borrowed some boards and sort of got on with it, and surfed there for a month, and then came home, and went back the following year. Later that year, went back and surfed again, and then went again the year after that in February, and then came home after that, and then surfed at Bells and won the event in 71. And then after that, we went to the world title, which Jimmy Blears won in 1972, which was again the following year after that. In 1972, we went in September to the world titles, and that's when we all came back to Hawaii, and that was in September, October. We built some boards. Rick and I built some boards, because by then, Rick had come to Hawaii a couple of times. We built some boards. And
who taught you to shape, taught Rick to shape and glass? And you did glass.
Well, Rick had worked for Honnessy, and he'd been shaping there. I'd ridden boards for Honnessy before that. As far as learning to glass, that was just kind of, You know,
You just had to do it.
just had to.
Well, Laurie, honestly, how many people went through Hono's factory? Hey, it's amazing when you look at the names that went through Hono's factory.
Yep, no, that's right. Yeah, you know, heaps and heaps. And of course, that late '60s was the surfboard revolution, where all the brands came up. You know, Nipper Williams, Ron Wade. You know, Richard was there building boards with. I believe he was with
Shane,
with Nipper and Shane, of course.
Yeah.
Shane Stedman, Shane Surfboards, and that whole Mermaid Beach thing really started to rage. And then Ken Surfboards. I then moved to Ken Surfboards prior to that, and it was in 1971 when I won the Australian title. Right after that, Rick and I moved out on our own and started building surfboards at Mermaid Beach.
Started the Brothers Neielson brand, the iconic brand, and which behind you there we've got one of those iconic stickers. It's unreal. And I got to say that my dad, I remember going up to one of your shops when I was a kid, because Dad always said, he goes, I had one board that Rick Neielson showed me. He says, the best board I ever had. And he goes, you know, I used to get boards off Hono, but he goes, nah, that one of Rick's was the best board ever, but there was nothing that was small enough for about the size I was in the shop, I can tell you that. But mate, yeah, had a great reputation, Brothers Neielson. So then, from then on, were you on Rick's boards from about then on, was you?
Well, what had happened is Rick and I had come back from the world titles in California, which, as I say, Jimmy had won, and PT had got second, and I think it was David Nueva got third at the Oceanside event. And it was a huge event. We all came back, the Australian team by and large came back to Hawaii, because everyone wanted to surf Hawaii. Rick and I, we went into town and built some boards, and started surfing that, you know, the 72 season pretty much back from about October. And we were living in this funny little house with Ian Cairns and, you know, Dapper and Mark Warren and Chatty and his girlfriend Cheryl had sort of got this house, and we were all sort of living there. And there was Dick Hoole there,
you know, if the walls could have talked.
If the walls could talk, because Upu'ula Street is right at the end of Sunset on the Velziland side. And so if you walk down that street, you know, you look right and you see Velziland, and you walk left and you sort of head down the back doors and into Sunset. And if the walls could talk, I'd tell you.
Must have been some adventures went on there.
Adventures. Oh, it was just a funny.
Well, just go backtrack a bit, mate. Your first bell, how was that when you won that? Because that was the only the third year of a professional contest. It had gone on before that, but.
Yeah, well, see, it wasn't professional then.
Wasn't professional?
No, that was 1971, and I didn't get the bell until much later. They had to back up because they'd had this sort of thing where they went through the history and they said, oh, well, certain people didn't get a bell. Yeah. So I only got my bell in around about, I've got to remember now. They gave it to me around about 25 years ago, something like that. Oh,
that's still good, mate. You got your bell.
It was still great. It was during the event. They did the awards.
Yeah.
I think Nat hadn't got one. I hadn't got one. There was maybe Wayne hadn't got one from one of those early contests.
Which is,
and so what they did is they just sort of picked up, and it was great, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, well, mate, so the season 72, you're there, you're a young bloke from Australia. How old were you? 21 or something?
21. Yeah. Well, I had my 21st birthday there. Actually,
No stories about that one coming out. No. But mate, that must have been a very exciting time for you. And you were in the Smirnoff. That was it. That was the one.
Well, the Smirnoff was considered, because of the prize
like
money,
a world title, wasn't it?
Well, it was called the World Pro-Am, and it was considered, you know, the number one event worldwide because of the prize money. You know, it was invitational.
$5,000 US?
$5,000 US for first, yeah.
Mate, that'd be like a new car or more than that, wouldn't it be?
Well, as a person said to me afterwards, you could buy a Porsche. You know, you could go into town and buy a Porsche. I went, yeah.
With the price, mate.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been a 911, but it would have been a Boxer or something like that.
So how were the ways? Tell us about that day. Well, was it over one day or was it over a few days?
Yeah. Well, I guess the first part of the story is that I didn't get an invitation. And
so you needed an invite to get in. You couldn't just rock up.
Yeah, you had to be invited, and I hadn't received an invitation, and I was pretty dirty because I was Australian champion, and and because the world titles were taken over 2 years, I'd got first in the first year, and in the second year I'd come fourth in Sydney. And so I'd sort of had out of the 2 years the points to lead, into the world titles. And I didn't do any good in the world titles. It's just the surf, our boards we just weren't.
Well, that was really small, wasn't it?
It was really, really tiny, and the waves were very weak, and we just we just didn't have boards for it. And that's when all of the twin fins and fishers and all that started coming out. New Eva was building. Anyway, so I had to get an invitation, and of course, I had I wrote letters to what's his name? The senator, the guy that ran it with Randy Rarick. His name's just escaped me for a moment.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, but I wrote Fred Hemmings.
Fred Hemmings. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So Fred Hemmings was the event promoter, and anyway, he finally someone pulled out or something or other, and I got in, and it's a 1 day event. There's 4 heats of 6, 24 surfers, and it was very too big at sunset, and so they moved it to Haleiwa, and Haleiwa was 8 to 10 feet.
That's a pretty intimidating place, because with the reverse sweep and everything and getting positioning, but I suppose you'd had practice, I suppose.
Well, as I said earlier, I'd lived there for that first month that I went to Hawaii, and I surfed Haleiwa day in, day out, and it surfed Avalanche, the big left hand outside it, and so I had tons of experience there, and I didn't feel in any way sort of new to the spot or intimidated or anything like that. And going back to where Rick had built this surfboard in Honolulu earlier in the year, and we'd built a couple each actually, and I had this one particular board, this big red board, 8 foot. And I had to ride on everything because that was sort of the board that I had. Yeah. And it just sort of went magic. It went magic at sunset, went magic at Haleiwa. And, so I just had this fantastic board. And yourself, anyone that sort of competed at a high level, the difference between an excellent board and a great board is miles. It's just, when you get an excellent board, you just feel as though you've doubled your performance.
I've got one of those boards that, even though it's old and beaten up, it's still magic.
Yeah, well, I currently go back to a 6.6 that I've got, and I must have had half a dozen other boards since, and I've just gone back to that one because I go, and I always keep thinking it's too small for me, it's too thin, it's too this, it's too that. And then I ride it and I go, oh, no, it's not. It was the waves last time. I got sick of it,
And how was the final made of that? Because you've obviously, what was it, 6-man heats?
Yeah, they were 6-man heats.
So you had like quarters, semis, finals.
It was a first round heat, semi-final, and then a final. And I mean, I remember the day, pretty vividly. And we're in the final, and there's 6 of us in there. There's myself, there's Jeff Hackman, Dapper, and I think there might be Sammy Hawke, Tigress Spear, and Barry Kanaipuni. And we're out there, and the first couple of waves go, and what they would do is they had like a Boston whaler in the lineup, would come around and tell you all the placings.
Well, that's a boat, is it? A Boston
whaler?
Boston
whaler boat, yeah. They'd come around, and they had the camera crew in there and all that sort of stuff because...
So it was filmed as well?
Yeah, they were all on... It was all on ABC TV in the United States, American Broadcasting Commission. And that was one of the shots that I wanted to bring in. It's got a helicopter, with the camera crew out of the window and so on. Anyway... they're out there, and it, he goes through the first round of things. He goes, pink in first. I'm wearing pink, and he goes, such and such in second, such and such in third, and I think Hackman was wearing blue or white or whatever, and it says, blue or because Hackman was the big worry.
Yeah,
he was the guy to beat on the North Shore for many events.
At any venue?
Almost at any venue, yeah. Particularly Sunset, Waimea and Haleiwa, Jeff was the one to beat. And as the final went on, I think it was about 45 minutes or an hour for the final, he was creeping up, and the colours would go around, and every time they'd say, pink in first and and then blue would be in third, and then with about 5 minutes to go, Dapper had been in second, and the boat came around, and with about 5 minutes to go, it said, blue in second. I went, oh, here he comes, it's on. He's gonna get me. Fortunately the clock ran out, and yeah, I can tell you, it's when they did the presentation, I turned to Jeff, and I said to him, I said, man, oh man, 3 long heats out at Haleiwa, and you said earlier there's that big rip that goes right through the lineup, and
it's dragging you out, not in.
Yeah, it's dragging you out. It's dragging you deeper in towards the river mouth, and you paddle. All you do is paddle. And 3 hours of surfing in that, plus warm-up heats in the morning and all, warm-up
And it's
sessions.
heat surfing. People don't realise that a heat takes a lot more out of you than a normal surf.
There's a heap more stress that because you're running on adrenaline, and I was exhausted. And I turned to Jeff and I said, Jeff, I'm exhausted. Aren't you tired? He just sort of looked at me like I was weird.
Yeah, what's wrong with you arsies?
yeah. I was completely and utterly buggered, but he was.
But you got the win.
But I got the win. Yeah, that's right.
And what'd you do with the $5,000, mate?
Well, I came home and bought a house.
Well, that's what Richard did with his. Well, he got $1,500. So he said it was a 10% deposit on a house and land at Dawn Parade, Miami. Mm-hmm. So we worked out it was about $150,000. So you must have been able to buy a house outright nearly with $5,000.
No, it was our house we first bought, which was in Calais Street, which was near where your caravan park, where your dad's caravan park was. That cost about $17,500. So it was, I don't know, $17,500 deposit or something like that. So whatever it is I put down, I might have put down more.
Yeah,
I can't remember all those final details.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And mate, that you bought that were you actually? I have to mention your beautiful wife, Karen Phillips. When I ever first met Karen, she was Karen Phillips, I think it was. It's
No, Karen James.
Oh, Karen James. Sorry,
Karen
not
James.
James, not
Yep.
Phillips. James.
Yep. Karen
James. Sorry, Karen. But, it was a long time ago. But I was at a Miami board riders meeting. I think it was 72, maybe. I don't know, or maybe not. Maybe. And Dennis Callanan had arranged her to talk about deportment.
Yes.
And what you do when you take a lady out, and this is how you say it. And
Silver service.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But I mentioned that to Dane King about 30 years later, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that was great. I got a root from that." It's like, kingy. But mate, when did you meet Karen, by the way?
Well, I'd known Karen obviously for a long time from sort of the mid 70s, and in sort of the mid to late 70s, she actually worked for us in the store, and in Surfers Paradise, and then I was in Sydney in about 1978, and she was going to leave and move to Sydney. Her father had lived in Sydney, and she was going to move and move down there and work down there, and et cetera, et cetera. And we were having a party. I was with Harry Hodge. We just got back from
Band on the Run.
Yeah, doing some of the filming on Band on the Run, which we'd sort of started back in about 1975, 76, and we'd been in Africa and Europe and etc. And we were back at Harry's place, sort of regrouping to do the balance of the trip to go and do sort of the finale part of it. And Karen came over. So I met her in Sydney. I'm saying that. So so she came over for a party, and we sort of met there. And
the rest is history, mate. You're still a great couple,
Well, we've been married since 1979, so it's
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, 45, 46 years. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
But between that, you would have been had a bit of fun, like in Hawaii there. So mate, basically everything tells me they reckon that you were kind of fearless in Hawaii. Like you used to just go and just airdrop straight down. Where did that come from? Because obviously the Gold Coast isn't like a massive wave venue. You just what do you put that down to?
I don't know. I loved riding big waves. I just loved the. I don't know whether you've ridden Big Sunset or
Nah, only 8 foot, mate, and that's tiny.
yeah. Well,
My 8 foot, not their 8 foot.
it's an amazing, great thrill. It's like Waimea. Like you look at Waimea Bay, and you sort of think, oh well, it's just a real short, just a little sort of one section takeoff, and that's all it is. But if you ask anyone that's ridden it, when you stand up and you get going, like first of all you got chop, 2 foot, 3 foot high, and you go in blind. You can't see because of the amount of spray, and then when you get over the lip and you take the drop and you start to grind a turnout, I can tell you that anyone that surfed Big Waimea, it's the longest wall you have ever seen.
Wow!
And you do not think you're going to make it. You just don't. All you do is you just look and you just go, my God, because of the height of the wave, it confuses the length of it. You know what I mean?
Right,
but you
high,
just feel you can't turn enough, but you do.
Well, when I surfed Sunset, I found coming off the bottom is the hardest thing to do. There's that much.
What a beautiful place to be, though.
Oh, it is. Sunset's lovely. I loved it. That's my favourite place when I went there, even though I didn't get it that big. It's such a bit, and it's so far out. Nobody really tells you that it's that far out. Just to paddle out there, it's like paddling from Miami nearly to Burleigh. It feels like.
It's a big paddle, but those two waves, Haleiwa and Sunset, they were my absolute favourite waves in Hawaii, and still are. I surfed Sunset back when I went to Hawaii with my boys and so on. It was for Danny's wedding, and I was 70. And surfed Sunset and saw some old guys and that out there, and my boys were stoked because I'd picked up a board from Hamilton, from Billy Hamilton, and it was a mal because I'd always wanted a mal. I'd had an earlier mal of his, and he makes really good mals, and so I'd picked up this board, and so I rode that out there, and it worked fine. It was great.
Mate, when I was at Sunset, there was guys that younger than 70, and they all had flotation vests on. Were you tempted to go for the flotation vest, mate?
No, but it was a rising swell, and I was out there with Chris and my youngest son Matt, and it was a rising swell, and it was it was good solid sort of 10, 12 feet, I suppose, and it was you could sort of tell, and I knew from experience, even though I hadn't surfed it in quite a few years. I went, it's time to get out of here because I could get in trouble,
Well, I remember Dane King again, he was telling me he surfed it once and he got caught in the rise and swell and couldn't get in. That was his hard thing. He couldn't catch the wave to get in.
Well, I'll tell you a story if you've got time.
Oh, we've always got time here at the Green Room, mate.
So this goes back to Uapu'ula Street, right?
Yeah.
We're all there. There's me and Kanga and Dapper and a funny crew, like we are having a
good old boys,
100 laughs. We've been on, we've been in California. We're now in Hawaii, and I'd been in town doing something or other with Rick with some boards or something or other, and the day Kanga and I the day before, Ian Cairns and I had gone into town to do whatever it was we were doing. I can't recall, and we drove past Sunset, and it was absolutely perfect. But we had to go, and we were picking up some boards or something, and we had to go into town. We drove past, and it was perfect. So the next morning we wake up, and we go, we've been in town all day yesterday. Everyone's raving how good the waves were. We missed out, and so we are down at Sunset. We look at it. It's clean. It looks identically the same, right, as the morning before. There's no one out. And so we just go and we just jump it. We jump in the rip, and as we're paddling out, we're kind of going, "Geez, the rip's pretty big." There's a
lot of water moving.
There's a lot of water moving, and you know when the rip's that big and it's all moving, and so we get out there, and of course, by now we're starting to deal with sets, and it's like it's really, really out of control. It's too big for Sunset. It's out of control.
And you're out there,
and there's him and me out there, and we're just paddling around trying to get out of the way, because
those west sets are absolutely evil.
Yeah, and it kind of had this whole evil thing which we hadn't seen because it was glassy or pretty glassy, just the watercolour's beautiful. It was a bright sunny day, but it was just monstrous. Anyway, I say to him, look, Ganga, it's every man for himself. Excuse me. We've got to, it's like, I'm just going to catch a wave and get in, because it was truly dangerous. And anyway, so I get this wave and I go in, and he was still sort of paddling over onto the north. He was trying to sort of get a wave out of there. Anyway, I went in, went home, got the cereal out, started having breakfast, the whole thing. And, about an hour later, I'm sort of going, geez, I wonder where Kangaroo is. Anyway, he walks in the door with this giant, forlorn look, his board under his arm, and it's like someone had like a spoon, a teaspoon that was razor sharp and took chunks out of him. He had all chunks out of him. And what had happened is, but he was still, he had a smile on his face.
Well, that's all
he
right,
was laughing because he was pretty indestructible, old Kanga.
Yeah.
And he stood there all forlorn, and he started to explain what happened. And he said he just got taken over onto the North Peak, over onto the shallowest part of the reef. Yep. Quarter wave just got smashed, dragged over the reef, and the whole he was just cut to bits. He had big bloody gashes out of him.
But he got in alive, though.
But he got in alive.
Because that's a lot of the thing they tell me at Sunset as well. When it's big like that, it's actually getting in is really hard, particularly if you lose your board.
Well, because you've got a valve reef on the inside, you've got to dodge that. And you either dodge it on the far, like looking at the surf, on the far right of that, or you dodge it on the left of that. But dodging it on the left, coming in through the rip, if it's really big, that rip is big and strong, and the waves on that shore break can be overhead. It's not Waimere's shore break, but it can be overhead, and it can smash you. I'm sure you've seen film of guys trying to get up the beach, and that's of course where all the tourists they stand on the beach, the next minute they're gone.
And they're washed out to sea.
And in one of the early events, I lost a surfboard. It was during the event, but the boat wouldn't get it because they had the film crew aboard. Yeah. And I'm screaming at them, grab my board, because I'd swum in and not realised that my board was in the rip and gone out.
Oh, it would have ended up miles away, wouldn't it?
It ended up somewhere, I don't know where, but it was Hackman's board. It was one of Hackman's boards, and it was the favourite board. We were kind of sharing it, and I lost it. And he's forgiven me since, but I haven't forgiven myself because it was such a fantastic board.
Oh, mate, and then not long after that, this is something I want to talk about that your good mate Mal Chalmers told me about. Busting down the door in Rabsing, there was all this evil stuff going on between the Hawaiians and the Australians. Bugs came out in his, Muhammad Ali look with the boxing gloves, and there was a bit going on in Hawaii then, wasn't it? It was pretty hectic. Like Sean Thompson saying he was sleeping with a gun under his pillow and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. I guess I was there just those few years before, and had formed relationships with the Ikaos and others, Ricky Gregg and so on. And when we first went there, we lived on a not the first time I went, but we lived in Uupula Street, so we sort of made friends with the locals around there. We used to surf Velziland all the time.
And Velziland was pretty heavy back then, wasn't it?
Velziland was heavy, but Barry Kanaiapuni surfed there.
Oh, right,
and so I knew Barry well. And I'd surfed with him in the event, and so I knew him prior to those early from those early sessions. I knew him, and knew the Ikaos, and so I never had a problem, with that whole thing. But simply because I was there in those couple of years before that. But pretty much what happened was, right after sort of the 72. Period, 73 and so on, I'd go back to Sunset and you'd go there and you go, man, oh man, what's happened? There was like 100 Australians in the water. Like it was like Maroubra had just hit the North Shore.
So every Aussie worth their salt said, I'm going to Hawaii.
Yeah, it just kind of, Hawaii had sort of hit that next generation, and everyone was going. And so, and I guess you kind of, there's not a lot of understanding of aloha spirit. There's not a lot of aloha going on, and so there's not a lot of aloha given back. and so all during that furor and that, Eddie came around to the unit one night where we were staying at the
Eddie Aikau, yeah.
Yeah, the Kui Lima. He knocked on the door and said, is Paul there? And, came out and said, we've got to stop. We've got to stop all this. It's getting, very, very serious. And so it was sort of a thing that, it wasn't the Aikaus, they were sort of saying that, no, we're not doing this. We're not, he was just saying to me, it's going on and you need to be careful. You got to tell these people that they can't just be out there dropping in and taking waves and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Show respect, basically.
Yeah, show respect. So that's
and your dad was a mate of Eddie Aikau's dad as well.
That's
he went
right.
to Hawaii with you too, old man.
Well, the year after I won the Smirnoff, my father came, my mother came, and we all stayed out there on the. Well, my mother was coming. She came a bit later. My father stayed in town with her. But the first year my father came just on his own, and we stayed out on the North Shore there, right there where Bernie Baker's house was. We had a house right next door to Ricky Gregg, and it was smack bang there, just on the beach at sunset, back where all the houses start as you head back towards Backdoors and Velsyland. And we used to drink beers in the yard in the afternoon with the Aikaus, and we'd go off into town, into Punch Bowl, and go and see, old Sol and Mama Aikau, and they'd be playing guitars and they'd be trying to feed us their cocktail, which was called Swipe.
Oh, Mal mentions about this Swipe thing. Was it deadly?
Well, yeah, it's pretty. Whatever it is, I don't know, but it's pretty deadly. Yeah. So we had sort of this from that time on, because my father was there, we had this sort of family relationship with the Aikaus, and so that kind of made it different, in some way. They sort of get that, and so as I say, I never sort of ran into those problems, but I was just there that year or two prior, and the generation before me was sort of Nat and Midget, because I remember one February I was there. I'm sure I saw a midget walking up the beach from Pipeline, and he used to go there in February as well, because that was kind of the best month. You get the best surf. Everyone had a gut full of surf. Everyone's a bit tired.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. Never go to Hawaii in November, because everybody's angry and everybody wants a wave.
They're too hungry.
Yeah. Oh, mate. So so basically, you and your family's kind of brokered some peace with that.
Well, in that early stages of it, and but I kind of pulled back from it from then, because it wasn't really my war. It was. Yeah. It wasn't really the Aikaus as well. It was sort of that next generation, and I never had any problems there, and so we just sort of let it roll. And I started sort of back out of Hawaii a bit then anyway.
Yeah, and of course by then the brothers Neielson is the shops and everything are firing up. I actually. Your first shop was in Surfers Paradise, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, in the Centre Arcade in Surfers.
25 cents for a block of wax first, sir?
24 cents.
24 cents.
Yeah, 24 cents. I believe we still have a block Karen's got a block in collection there. It was called Surf Research out of California. Doesn't look very good now. Yeah. A block of wax that's, what's that? 50, 60 years old.
That's great to have stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Mum made some of the clothes and stuff like that. Mate, it's full family business.
Yeah, she used to make board shorts, because there was no one making board shorts back in those early days. It all sort of started in those few years after that.
You know what's funny, I find? Like, you were the chippy and Rick was the bricklayer.
Yeah.
Normally you expect the bloke who'd be shaping would be the chippy.
Yeah.
But it ended up going the other way.
Well, it was because Rick was shaping with Honesty when I was...
when you were still school.
Yeah, because he'd finished his apprenticeship, and he'd gone to work with Honesty, so that was where he learnt to shape.
Oh, that's cool. And those boards in the shop were iconic for so long, mate. It was I just know in Surfers Paradise there, it's like actually Surfers Paradise. You had a shop in Surfers Paradise. That was like,
Yeah, well, we used to sell boards wholesale, of course. We used to sell them to Mark Richards' dad, Ray Richards.
Oh, right down the
Yeah. We used to do drives every Friday night. We'd drive to Newcastle, surf on the way back, drop.
How many boards?
Oh, we dropped 10 boards off a week to him.
Wow. Just all on the roof?
Yeah, just take them all on the roof or the back of combi vans, whatever it was we had. And we'd drive down there, drop the boards off, maybe have a surf there in the morning, and then head back and surf Angari and so on, and then be back at work on Monday. Pretty sort of brutal.
Well, mate, Rick had a pretty good bloke in yourself though, as a test pilot too, to actually tell him about the boards as well. So
yeah.
Did you probably had a lot of discussions about how boards went and what you could do?
Yeah, of course, and as you know, not every board is that magic board or an excellent board, and so you're forever trying to find the right thing. And so that whole surfboard revolution in the late 60s and early 70s, and even through the 70s up until when the thruster came out.
Yeah.
I remember Jimmy Blears, who'd come out for the world titles in Bells in 1970, and he'd come up to the Gold Coast and stayed up the Gold Coast, as did Lopez and Corky Carroll and a bunch of others had come up to the Gold Coast after they were in Victoria at the world titles. And Jimmy went back to Hawaii, and we'd become friends. And we'd been going to Hawaii, and we knew him from Makaha, from the world titles, from staying at our place. Lord Tally-Ho Blears was his dad. And so we sort of, along with the Bensons, you remember Colonel Benson, who was a photographer and had the daughters.
Oh,
Becky,
that might be a bit before my time, maybe.
Yeah, well, he had the surfing daughters. Becky and I'm going to get killed for this. I not remember.
Oh, mate, you're doing pretty well.
And you wonder about your memory sometimes.
Oh, mate, I don't know what happened last week.
We all get that, don't we?
Yeah. But yeah, mate, it sounded like it was an exciting time for Brothers Neielson. Well, an exciting time for you because then you had the Stubbies as well going on. But you retired at the 78 Stubbies, was it?
Well, I'd sort of been, because I'd competed sort of late 60s, early 70s, had the success in the early 70s, and then the Stubbies, I was still competing sort of only in the main events. Because you still had to work. There was no,
Yeah.
I was getting some sponsorship dollars, but nothing like, enough to. And of course, we'd started our business back in 71.
And you got to be there at the business as well.
And I had to be there at the business, and still wanted to go to Hawaii and so on. And then, of course, the movie thing came up, the Band on the Run with Harry, and we sort of travelled a bit in the opposite direction. And that was right when the world tour started. And so even though Rabbit was on the tour with us, he kept leaving to go to Brazil or to go here or to go there to surf in events because he was trying to win. He was trying to win it. Whereas I was I sort of passed that. I'd sort of moved on. But then, of course, the Stubbies came in 77. And so that was, it's all in the beginning of the proper professional surfing.
Well, Peter Drawn, mate, I got to say, Peter Drawn is the most underrated and not recognised surfer and surf, creator, innovator. Like, it's a shame with Pete that he's not recognised for what he's done because he basically revolutionised pro surfing.
Well, that's exactly right. And, I mean, that whole man-on-man system that they still use to this day has not been changed really at all.
No, not really,
other than what Peter designed in the beginning, and Peter and I surfed one day to do some promotional film for the event, the first 77 event. And what he had a rule in it which was called effective cheating and ineffective cheating.
That sounds straight out of the book of Drawn.
Well, it is, and so effective cheating was that imagine you've caught a wave at Burleigh. And I'm on the outside, but I wait till you go around the bottom of me, and then I drop in and take off. You've had it happen. I've had it happen.
Snaking, basically.
Well, it's sort of snaking, but it's not that they're on your inside to begin with. They've waited till you've gone past. Then they've snaked. So it's kind of a snake, but yeah.
But that's effective cheating.
And that would be effective cheating because because the guys let you in, and whereas ineffective cheating would just be a blatant drop in, dropping in the outside. And so he had these rules, and of course, if you've effectively cheated and you can sort of out control the wave from the guy on the outside, well, then you get more points. That didn't stand the test of time, but because no one wanted drop-ins or anything like that. They wanted to have sort of, we just have our waves and that's it. And
I remember reading in the paper when I was a kid that he wanted to get a bit of biffo going on in the heats as well.
Well, yeah, not really biffo, but he what it was
aggression.
Was it if there was an effective cheating going on, you could push, bump, hit.
Oh, mate, and you got third in the 78 Stubbies. Did you retire straight after that, or did you just wait till the...
No, because I had a good year in 78 because the World Cup was in Hawaii that year. Yeah. And it was at Haleiwa again, and so I'd made the final in that, and it was 76 or 78. I can't. Oh, geez, now the memory's going a bit. Yeah, but I'd made the final of the 78 World Cup, and then done well in the Stubbies. Got third in the Stubbies as well, and it kind of by then, and then the following year I got married, and so things just started to start a family. We were still doing. A bit of the movie stuff was still kind of dragging on.
Yeah. That Band on the Run's a great movie too.
Well, Harry tells me, I haven't heard it from Kelly, but Harry tells me that it's Kelly's favourite movie. So, but I'm not dobbing Kelly in. I'm just saying Harry tells me that.
And well, that's like Paul McCartney let him use Band on the Run, his song from Paul McCartney and Wings. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
And I love at the start of the movie, it's at Kirra, and in Band on the Run, it's got and the rabbits on the run and rabbits in this barrel. The edit was just so good that it was like
No, that was a great. And of course we, well certainly we got to go to places that I probably never would have gone, like South Africa and so on. And Indonesia, I'd been focused on Hawaii. I hadn't spent a lot of time in Indonesia, and we went to Indonesia to film some of the final sequences and etc. And then very fortunately later in life, like from the 90s on, I started travelling a lot on boat trips with Greenie, the late Alan Green.
Yeah.
And started travelling on boat trips, and we had some fantastic times. And and sort of in the 2000 or so thereabouts, he got the boat. He bought the Indies Trader 4, and we did a ton of trips on that, and surfed all the way from right up high, in west in the Mentawais, to all the way across. Well, in another boat, I surfed all the way out to Papua New Guinea, but we surfed all the way to Sarong, which is West Papua, and all along the north coast of West Papua. And the problem there is there's no mooring spots, but the surf is magic. There's so much magic surf there. I mean, Doris knows.
Yeah, Doris knows everything.
And Doris knows all about this, but he knows the GPS points.
Speaking of Doris, mate, is it true that you gave him the nickname Doris?
I don't believe so. I might have, because if you look at some old photos of Tony, he's the spitting image of Doris Day.
That's what Mal Chalmers said too.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I might have. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, mate, they sound like great days doing all that travel and that. So, mate, the shop's going, and you've got all the Brothers Neielson stuff, and then, mate, you've got the surf events. But then, I'm not sure what year that was, but you become a coach. You're Australia's first coach. But I got a little story to tell you. He coached me to probably my greatest heat win ever. I was in Miami Board Riders. I was 17 years of age, and Paul was training the whole team, the Miami Board Riders team, and it was the Northern Beaches Teams Challenge at Burleigh, I'm just this little grom. I'm about 4'10" and wasn't driving a car yet, but I was 4'10". I was really tiny, and I've got this heat. Like Paul's telling us, you got to get your three waves back then. You got to get your 3 waves. You know what to do. Blah blah blah. And then it's come to the heat draw, and here's a heat draw, and I've got, Chris Tricklebank. Oh, I've beaten Chris once. He's about 5-6 years older than me, maybe. And then Peter Lawrence, Australian junior champion. I've gone, And then 2 weeks before, some bloke named Joe Engel had won bells. And so it was 2 weeks after Joe, and I've gone, Joe Engel, and I remember you got into my head so well. You just went to me, I said, who are you? And he goes, do you think they're worried about who you are? You got nothing to worry about, mate. You got nothing to lose. You just go out there, you get your waves. And I was so switched. You had me switched on, and I think first wave I got a backdoor barrel and came out. It was ugly all day, and for that heat it went glassy. But, the thing was, though, was the next heat I had Tony Dempsey, and Tony was probably in his 30s, and I'm getting on the microphone going, get out of your wheelchair, old man. And Tony did me like a dinner. I was just like, I totally lost all you told me. But, mate, you're a great coach. I remember just from my experience, mate. How did that all come about, becoming a coach?
Well, I'd sort of moved on from professional surfing by and large. It was 1982, and I'd been talking to Alan Atkins and Rod Brooks, and Alan approached me and said, look, we've got the 1982 world titles coming up. We'd like to consider you as coach. And it was the first time that coaches had been appointed, and for the team. And so I said, yeah, that'd be great. It'd be an honour. And so the event was in Australia. It was on the Gold Coast, and we had the likes of Tom Curran was coming from the United States team to represent the juniors and surf in the men's and the juniors. And we had Dougal Walker, who you'd know, and Bryce Ellis, and other randoms from the Sunshine Coast like Wolfie and Robbie Wolf. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember Robbie Wolf.
He was the wild, goofy footer.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good surfer.
And so we sort of bedded down at the Tallabudgera Fitness Camp, and we'd sort of started a week or so earlier over at the Moana Park Motel over there, and we're in there and working with the guys, and to my amazement, after sort of a life of competitive surfing, I was sort of gobsmacked with how much they weren't applying themselves to some of the basic things, like the heat times and the what is it exactly you're trying to do here, how many waves you got to get, rather than just sort of going out and just going random all over the place, you know what I mean? Just trying to ride anything and everything and so on. And so we started out by doing a number of very, simple exercises like, I just need to show you that you don't have to have your heart rate going so fast.
Yeah.
You got, so we do 5-minute heats, of where I'd say like, go out for 5 minutes and see if you can get, 3 waves, see if you can get one. And what it was all about was just, pulling them down so they realise that, when they're sitting in a heat with 20 minutes to go, it's not the end. Yeah, there's a lot of waves are going to come between. Anyway, wow. So go on.
But did you so you've taken this coaching thing because you'd never had any training as a coach or anything, right?
No.
So is that from all your own experience? So when you were surfing, were you sort of coaching yourself sort of thing to?
Well, you pretty much had to. By then I'd had some business experience in some, different sessions and different things. And, and plus, I sort of read a little bit about it, before it started, because I did take it very much as an honour. And I, to this day, it's been an honour. But yeah, we started with the team in 1982 and we won that world title. We went on for like a teams event in 1983 in California with just a team. We went back in 1984 with for the world titles in that Stroh, world titles. Went back to England in 1986, which is where Kelly Slater first appeared as a little grommet, and then in 1988 we went to Puerto Rico. In 90 we went to Japan, and that was where Heifarah Tahini won the world title. He was the Tahitian, whiz that just came out of the blue and blew everyone out of the water. And Shane Bevan won the juniors, and Wayne Dean won the longboards. So there was a few.
That's a lot of years you were coaching for, mate.
Yeah, well, I went right through until '98. Only missed one, which was I think it was the Lacanau one in '96, because we went to Brazil. We went '88 Puerto Rico, which was a mammoth, huge event, huge event. Andrew McKinnon won the longboards, and a Brazilian Gouveia.
Fabio Gouveia.
Fabio Gouveia won the his son is now on the pro tour, I believe. Yeah.
Ian Gouveia.
Ian Gouveia. Yeah. And Fabio won the world title there, and we won the teams. We had enough. We must have won the juniors and the girls, of course, and then we went from '88, '90. We went to Japan. I said and then '92 was Brazil, I think. '94.
Wow, that's an illustrious history, mate. To coach that long, of course, no wonder you're in the Hall of Fame, mate. That's up the front with all the other Hall of Famers up there. The other night it was a magnificent night. But I can see, mate, because I know that when you coached me, which was when your early days and you coached probably your first year, but you were very analytical. You broke it down and made it simple for me. I was only 17, but you made it simple, like, here's what you got to do.
Yeah, well, a guy by the name of George came into our shop in Surfers Paradise in, must have been 1972, 73. Yeah. And he was an older guy. I don't know exactly how old, but he was, he came in, he said, look, I'm a good snow skier, I'm this, I'm that. I'm athletic enough, I want to learn to surf. And kind of looked at him. He said, well, I need you to give me surf lessons. He said, he'd come from a ski instructing, sort of thing, and he kind of took me through it and said, well, I want to learn to surf. You've got to coach me. This is, you've got to figure this out, because there's, this is a business that you can develop, and so I took him down the beach and I started, giving him surf lessons. It was a bit hard. He was a bit old. It was because that getting up, if you haven't done that, skiing is completely different. I took the grandkids skiing just this year, and I hadn't skied in, I reckon, 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And I reckon it'd been 40 years since I'd skied. And I took the grandkids, and of course I was really, really careful. I had an incident in the lift line. It fell over in the lift line.
Oh, I know.
They all started screaming, "Get out! Get out!"
I know what that's like with me.
But once I got on the mountain, I started to go all right. And I was only on the little slopes. But it was a great. I want to go again, because it wasn't as hard as I thought. But anyway, he tried surfing. We tried our best. But that's when I started, beginners lessons. And
so you started surf coaching before surf coaching.
Started surf coaching and surf schools before surf coaching and surf schools. Yeah.
Wow. So that's an amazing innovation.
And that was it. That was in the 70s. I used to run classes out of the shop along Surfers Paradise Beach. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. There you go. Another one. That's amazing. I never knew that one, that you started surf coaching. And there's always people say, oh, you learn to surf, but that's proper, from that ski guy that gave you that.
Yeah. It was just, it was something that surfing didn't do.
Yeah.
So there was no one doing surf lessons, they did it in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It wasn't as though it was sort of branded, but that was a different sort of thing, because, you've been to Waikiki.
Yeah, they just push you.
It's just perfect every day for it. And they've got, 10, 12-foot boards. If you've never surfed before, you'll be surfing within an hour,
Yeah, and it's just a nice smooth.
It's just a nice smooth. You can get on a big board. You can easily ride a sloping wave. Out here you got shore race like today.
This morning, yeah.
Or the last couple of months, actually.
Yeah, there's a couple of good little banks around though, but it's that's a crazy thing that surf coaching as well. And as well as that, mate, the Brothers Neielson brand, you've had some great shapers through Brothers Neielson as well. Mm. Of course, your brother Rick, Phil Myers, you'd know them more than me, and some great sponsored surfers.
Yeah, Karen said to me, she said, you got to remember to talk, about the events that we sponsored.
And the events too, the Brothers Neielson Pro Junior.
The Brothers Neielson Pro Junior, where we had Mick Fanning.
And you got the last very last year of real kira for that event. I'm not sure before the sand pumping. They'd done a bit of pumping, but they hadn't done the super bank. And it was pre-super bank. Yeah. I think Luke Munro won it that year.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And it was the last time, because I think that might have been, Nathan was about 11, so it would have been 97 maybe 97. But that, you got the last year of real kira. It was when they did a bit of pumping, and it was like real kira.
I recall, we ran the event for a long time, and we had notable winners, as I say, Mick Fanning. We had, what's his name, the Brazilian kid. He just won the event at Burleigh.
Felipe.
Felipe
surfed in the Brothers Neielson Pro Junior.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Felipe. No.
Or Gabby, not Gabby, no?
No, it was the kid before. It was the one before him. Yeah.
But, mate, the number of competitors you've had go through that, and like Barton Lynch was on your team.
Yeah,
as well. Shane Bevan.
Yep, we had Shane and
Jay
Phillips, of course. Yep.
It was so iconic.
Yeah, it was, and
that event, I remember, I think I might have got to commentate it maybe once. I think that might have been that year. But it's like, mate, it was all the kids. It was it was before, was the pro juniors were sort of coming, but that was one of the iconic one. And you started that. When did you start the Brothers Neielson Pro Junior?
Oh, geez, you've got me.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah, come on.
Late 80s, yeah, I know. Okay, won't go too much. But mate,
I can't even think of one of the winners. I've lost his name too. So,
but mate, that's a great thing, because you did put into the community, and Brothers Neielson was a part of the community. It's funny. Ziggy, our producer, right?
Mm.
He knows sweet FA about surfing. But I said, I've got Paul coming in from Brothers. And he goes, I've heard of Brothers Neielson. And he's I think he's only in his 20s. How should he know?
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
That's right.
And it's an iconic brand, an iconic thing on the Gold Coast, and that sticker, that logo that's behind you there, Surfers Paradise.
Yeah.
It was definitely part of the whole Surfers Paradise iconic thing. It was in the day, mate. It's a great thing, and you've done a hell of a lot over this career and life, mate. And to see you still out at Burleigh and surfing Sunset at 70, God, and the only other bloke, that Philippe Polymar or whatever, he's still surfing 20 foot at 82. Andy Mack tells me, but
Felipe Pomar.
Pomar,
yeah, he's up in West Timor.
Yeah,
and I think they're doing stand up. It's stand up surfing.
Stand up. Right.
I don't believe
you're not standing. You're getting to your feet, mate.
I think the next level is a boogie board. It's not actually.
You're not gonna be a meerkat, mate, standing on those boards.
I think it's too much gear to cart down the beach.
Well, that's what I reckon. And too much. Can't get. Guys say they can get barreled on them. I wouldn't want to get barreled with the paddle and all that board.
All that
around
equipment,
me.
that's right. Yeah. It's all that gear.
And, mate, you're still out there when it's solid. And Mal Chalmers too, mate. You blokes are inspiration. I always say to Mal, when I grow up, I want to be like you, Mal. I haven't grown up yet. But, mate, you guys, still having a crack. And you're in your 70s and, Sunset at 70. What the fuck? Mate, it's really good, and I'm so honoured to have you here on the Green Room, and I'm so honoured to have known you all these years, Paul. It's always been a pleasure, even though you told me that my skinny jeans would make a comeback one day. They did.
Thanks, Tava. Good on you.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Paul Neielson, ledge.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Green Room. Hey, folks. Would you like to get your name in the Green Room podcast? Well, we are looking for sponsors, so if you want to get a sponsorship, check it out at Podfire. Lots of people can hear about your product on one of the best podcasts around the Green Room, so check it out, Podfire. Thanks for tuning into the Green Room. A big thank you to our guests for sharing their stories and insights, and Podfire for bringing this podcast to life. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the Green Room with your friends. We'll catch you next time for more conversations with the legends of surf and beyond. Until then, catch you in the waves.